Welcome to the TechSales Funnels Podcast, where we dive deep and answer the ultimate question, how did you hack into tech sales? Each week, we bring you inspiring stories, proven strategies, and insider tips from top performers who've cracked the code to break into tech sales and thrive. Whether you're just starting out, making a career pivot, or ready to level up, this is your go-to space for actionable advice and real-world success stories. Let's crack the code together, because hacking into tech sales isn't just a dream, it's your next move. Now with your host, the founder of TechSales Funnels and the tech sales hacker himself, Dayvisson DaSilva.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the TechSales Funnels Podcast. This is Dayvisson DaSilva, the tech sales hacker, your host, and today I'm bringing a really good friend of mine. We worked together both at Microsoft, and he currently actually worked for IBM, which we didn't cross path at IBM, but maybe we did. I'm not, can't even remember it right now. But the reason why I wanted to bring him to the podcast is because I resonate a lot with him being an international student, having kind of a similar background in big tech, and he has an amazing career. So welcome today, Mark Sonkin. How are you?
Doing great. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited and honored for the invitation, Dayvisson.
Man, you're looking good. Like, you make me look really good right now.
Hey man, I do it for you. Want to show up good.
Awesome. So I have a few questions here reserved for you, for this audience. A lot of people listening to this are tech sellers. They are trying to break into tech sales, or they are seniors, tech sellers, executive. Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of people who are listening to this right now. But how about, I always like to take tech sales out of the line, the current job, and then can you give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are? Who is Mark? Tell us a little bit of a high level about you.
High level. So going back to the kind of foundation, you and I are similar where we are both immigrants to the U.S. I was much younger, so I was 5 years old when my family immigrated from Ukraine to the United States. Grew up in Minnesota, went to public schools along the way, and eventually made it to a private university with the kind of help of scholarships and financial aid, and studied economics and Chinese in college with a minor in political science. So I had an opportunity to study abroad in China for my junior year of college. I went to St. John's University, go Johnnies, and graduated in 2010. So economy was not doing so well. We were going through the 2008, 2009 global financial crisis, and in a very similar climate to what feels like the job market right now for new college grads, where there's not a lot of those entry-level jobs. And I think in 2010, when I graduated in the May, June timeframe, about 40% of my class found full-time jobs, so less than half. Wow. And I know right now, again, I don't know the exact number, but it's very difficult, for a 22, 23-year-old to find a good, corporate job. Right now, just with everything happening kind of in the AI landscape and automation and everything else. So I definitely feel for the new college grads right now going through some of those challenges, because I went through them myself, just in a different kind of scenario. But yeah, that's a little bit about my background.
Very interesting. And I remember those days. I actually graduated in 2007. It was right during the beginning of and I actually graduated without a job, and I was trying to find jobs, and I don't even knew much about what was happening in the world. I was just so focused at school, graduation, and boom. And I feel for the youth right now, for the new generation as well.
Absolutely.
But that was great. So you mentioned about Ukraine, and all that. So how is your Chinese though right now these days?
My Mandarin is Mama Hu Hu, which is kind of so-so, is what it means. When I was living there, I hesitate to say I was fluent. I could get around, getting from the dormitory, walking around the city, ordering food and going to class. So unfortunately, it's been 15, 16 years since I have used it. And I haven't, had the opportunity to use it too much in my career or in personal life. So I've kind of lost a lot of that language. But I do still speak Ukrainian with my family, have a few friends, and practice my Spanish as well. So languages, I do love to learn languages, and it helps when you're traveling abroad to know some of the foundational kind of language skills.
Yeah, 100%. I asked because one of my dreams is to speak Chinese, and I know nothing. But
we can start. Ni hao ma. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, ni hao ma. There you go.
Yeah.
Let's dive a little bit into your career. I know you currently are at IBM, but I want to take a few steps back because just today I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. You're like a textbook of how to progress in tech sales, and you have been in small tech, big techs. Can you start with the? I like to ask this question at almost every single podcast. How did you break into tech sales? How did you hack into tech sales? Let's start from there.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I will say, I did not intend to hack into tech sales. So I'll go one step back quickly. My dad has been a car salesman for 26, maybe 27 years now at the same car dealership, Toyota in Golden Valley, Minnesota. If anyone needs a Toyota in Minneapolis area, go to Boris. He can help you out. And one thing I think I just saw as a kid growing up was, he worked very hard and he did not work a typical 9 to 5, right? So I would come home from school and, he worked noon to 8 or 9 p.m. or sometimes 10 p.m. at the car dealership, because when the regular folks, folks who work 9 to 5 office jobs, they go to buy their car on the weekends, on Saturdays, after office hours. And so he missed a lot of, and I missed him a lot of evenings. And so to me, I think that's what I thought sales was this career where, it's stressful. You can have years where you make good money. You can have years where it's more challenging. Maybe not around or being able to be around with some of the kind of family events or dinner with the family every night. So I think for me, I wanted a stable corporate job coming out of college. And again, I graduated in 2010. So my first job out of college was actually not sales related at all. I was fortunate in that 40% group that landed a full-time job in 2010. I started at Cargill, and I was in their plant manager trainee program, where essentially I was learning how to run a facility that made animal feed. So something that I never saw myself doing. I moved from Minneapolis down to a town called Seguin, Texas, which is a rural town in Texas of about 10,000 people. 22 years old, had just been in China the year before, and now I'm a city guy all of a sudden in rural Texas, with cowboy boots and a hard hat and leather gloves going to work, learning how to run one of these facilities. So if you can guess, I wasn't very happy in that job. It just wasn't me. Although I was fortunate to kind of get a job and land a career, I knew that it wasn't the career path that I wanted to pursue, going from rural Texas to rural Oklahoma to rural other towns around the country. So after a year, I kind of decided to take a chance on myself and say, you know what, I really am grateful for the opportunity, but I had to part ways. I parted ways with the company, decided to quit, moved back to Minnesota, and then it was a fresh start. And luckily, one thing I did want to kind of shout out my Johnnies and where I went for my undergraduate degree, because they were really helpful. I think when I came back to Minnesota in summer of 2011, I reached out to some of my friends and colleagues that I had graduated with, and shout out to Nathan Calderon if he listens, or I'll tag him on LinkedIn. But he was working at this company, Outsell, and he was a seller there, really kind of an entry, level account manager, account executive type of role. Yeah. And he said, Mark, have you thought about sales? And I said, no. My dad's been doing it. And I don't think that's the career path for me. It's too stressful. I'm not around. I don't want to work at, he's like, no, this is not that kind of job. And so my entry into sales, and when I say entry, it was, very entry level at Outsell. It was a company of about, I think, maybe 60 or 70 employees, and it grew very rapidly. It was a SaaS product in the automotive space. Funny enough, it was digital marketing for automotive dealerships, which is an industry that I grew up my whole life around, and going to the auto show in Minneapolis. So I knew it. I knew what internet sales manager cares about and doesn't care about. So I had that benefit, and kind of the stars aligned, so to speak, in terms of that opportunity. And so that was my entry into tech sales, was that account manager job, where I was working with internet sales managers of automotive dealerships across the country, and across every brand from Toyota to Ford to Mercedes. Everyone.
Oh wow! So did your friend? Maybe I missed that piece, but did your friend recommended you? Like, he took your resume, gave it to the hiring manager? How was like the initial getting the job? Right? Was that super hard? You had a lot of interviews. Just the past skills, how that worked out for you during the process?
He did. It was a smaller company, so it was 60 employees. So he definitely, I think the whole sales team was, I think, 5 of us with 1 sales manager, and so he did recommend me. Funny enough, that the first job that I actually interviewed for, they said it was more of a customer service. It was not even selling. It was more account management, customer support kind of thing. But after about, I think, 2 or 3 months, they saw that I can, I like to talk to people and build relationships. And that's the benefit of working at a small company like that, is if you show that you're putting forth effort and you're doing things proactively, you can kind of quickly make moves, and it's not so much hierarchical as bigger corporations. Startups move very rapidly, and so my first job was really, I think, a customer support rep, where it was taking emails, replying to them, or taking calls and replying to them, and kind of solving problems. But I did that. I almost don't even mention it, because I was in that role for maybe 60 days or 90 days or less before I moved to kind of an account manager role. But I think he helped me with kind of getting on the short list to be interviewed. And since he was already there and doing well, and I think he had been there less than a year, but because we had graduated at the same time. So that definitely helped me know where to look, because I didn't know that I wanted to be in sales. Or that I would like it. But sometimes I would say, last thing I'll say is, people see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And it kind of, things like that can kind of snowball, right? Or give you opportunities that you don't even think about. But it really does help to, of course, have someone open a door for you and to see your potential before you even see it yourself.
I love that. Really like that a lot. And I'm pretty sure that happened throughout your career in tech sales. You network your way to one of the big tech organizations in the world, including, I'm looking at LinkedIn profile here, Oracle. I know IBM and Microsoft, but how is the process to get a job in a small tech organization like a SaaS? How big of a difference it is to join the Oracles and the Microsofts and the IBMs, on your perspective?
It really helps. It's very, I think, challenging to make that leap from a startup to a Fortune 100 tech company. But once you get in the door of one of them, I think the world kind of, or the doors really open up to you. When you have Oracle on your resume and you have proven yourself that you can succeed, it helps to get to Microsoft. And when you have Oracle and Microsoft, it helps to get to IBM or others. And so my journey to get to Oracle was unique and interesting. I will say, you know how they say pressure makes diamonds. I don't think I'm a diamond, but I was under pressure. Yeah, exactly. So I was under pressure where I worked at a few different startups for the first 2 to 3 years of my career, and I did fall in love with sales. Once I started doing it, I thought I wanted to work at Best Buy or Target or 3M. These are some of the large Fortune 500 companies that are in the Twin Cities area. And I thought, hey, I want to be a business analyst. I want to make my, at the time it was, $50,000 or $60,000 a year salary. That's more than my parents made, growing up, and I'm going to be good. As I got into sales, my base salary at the time, to be totally transparent, was maybe $40,000 when I started my career. But I had the potential to make 50 if I hit my accelerators and incentives or things like that. So I liked the fact that I was kind of in control of my destiny when it came to sales. Getting into Oracle, I didn't know really anyone. I think I had met with someone for coffee at a company that I was, kind of building my network essentially. And he mentioned one name to me, and again, I'll kind of name drop Kim Johnson, and she was a manager at Oracle at the time. And I've learned about they're going to do this hiring event. It was their new fiscal year, and they had maybe 10 spots or less, but they had one of the like a kind of a happy hour event where at the time they used to have an office in downtown Minneapolis before kind of a lot of the Oracle operations moved down to Austin, Texas. And they had maybe 300, 400 people working out of Oracle in downtown Minneapolis. And so first things first, like how do I get invited to this happy hour event? So I think I reached out. I have been on LinkedIn since since I graduated, maybe 2010, 2000, maybe even 2009. So I'm kind of a OG when it comes to LinkedIn, although I haven't, become an influencer or anything like that. But I showed up to this event. I was able to get an invite, and there's 100 people, more than 100 people there, having hors d'oeuvres, drinking a beer or wine, and I knew, okay, this is my chance to go. I don't know anyone. I don't have kind of a word of mouth resume or warm introduction anywhere. So I need to make that impression. I need to stand out amongst, if there's maybe 10% or less are going to be hired or even good in an interview for a role, I need to do something to stand out. So I went over and I think of myself as an introvert. People see me and say, hey, Mark, you're definitely an extrovert. You can talk to anyone, but I feel like I recharge my battery at home, on reading a book or on the couch or watching TV. And so I had to build up the courage to say, this is my chance. I do have to get out of my comfort zone in this time, and walked up to Kim, introduced myself, said I had heard about her from, this gentleman, Tim. And that definitely, that didn't get me the job, but it just helped me stand out a little bit, saying, hey, I knew, I think early on, that there's people that are in this room and they're watching how you act. Are you going to go in a corner by yourself? Are you going to socialize and talk to people? Are you going to, and so I knew, even though I'm an introvert, I think at heart, I said, now is not the time to be an introvert. Now is the time to stand out, socialize, conversate with different folks in the room. And so, that event was 100 people. Then they broke us out into conference rooms of about 12 to 15 people per room. And then what I now know was that the managers after that event all get together and said, who stood out to you, who asked good questions, who was proactive in reaching out and introducing themselves. And that helped me actually get into the formal interview process. I kind of made it through that filter. They interviewed maybe 30 or 40 people. And I was one of the fortunate, 10 people who got an offer from Oracle.
Oh, wow. What a unique experience. And we don't see that as often these days. Maybe not. I'm not sure, but that's really awesome. So out of 100, you stood out, got the interview on the interview loop, got the offer Oracle. That's amazing. And that got you exposure to the big leagues, to playing on the
Yeah.
big tech. How would you say, what's the number one difference, like the pro and the con, and like what's good about it and bad about it of working with big tech and in
Yeah.
comparison to
I would
startups?
say the pro is when you're calling on a prospect and when I'm saying cold call, cold email, and this was much more common than it is now, or maybe it's starting again now of actually picking up the phone and making dials. If you say, this is Mark Sonkin and I'm calling from Oracle, more than likely, right, this enterprise or this corporation has heard of Oracle, or they've heard of Microsoft or IBM. When you say, this is Mark Sonkin, I'm calling from Outsell, or I'm calling from FizzDAP, most likely they haven't heard of you, right? Unless it is very niche and things like that, right? So I think that's the big difference, is just that name and brand recognition, working at a big company. The negative is, when you play for the Yankees, you're expected to go to the World Series every year, right? If you don't go to the World Series, if you don't win the World Series, that's a disappointment. And so I remember that was a manager when I had actually joined Microsoft after Oracle. He told me that, and it really has stuck with me now the past decade of every year we're the Yankees. We're expected to go to the World Series. We have, go to Super Bowl, World Series, whatever sport, World Cup final. And so that level of expectation for performance, that pressure, especially in a sales role of, hitting quota and attainment is a very, real thing for sure.
Yeah. There's the pros and cons. I love that analogy, and it takes the best, right, to play for the best. And I'm glad that you have been able to play in both leagues, and then you're performing just well on the big leagues. I was having a thought here the other day when I was going to be speaking with you, because you have had an amazing career in tech sales, and a lot of people listening to this, they're trying to develop themselves and do better. What were like the two, maybe one or two or three biggest piece of advices you have received in your career that has helped you even today? Everybody knows it's hard. Sales is hard, that.
Yeah.
It takes, some big nuggets here and there, like a system here and there, or a tool or something to make you successful. What would you say?
The first thought that comes to mind, and this isn't, I would say even maybe advice I have gotten, is just kind of natural hunger, like a want to grow, a desire to achieve, right? And maybe it's immigrant mentality and an American dream kind of aspiration. Maybe if it's even going to that foundational level, because I know, that's why my parents immigrated to this country, was for the American dream. And, they worked really hard and they didn't speak English, and just being a child, seeing all of that, I think was like core to who I am as a person, is wanting to level up and build my better life. Definitely have gratitude and appreciate what I have and what I've accomplished. But if I'm capable, if I'm smart, if I, can do these other things to grow and better myself, why wouldn't I do that? I think that just ties so closely into sales, because again, I think at a foundational level, once I knew, one career type is go be an accountant, make your salary. It can be a very good salary, 80,000 or 100,000 plus or whatever. But that's your salary, and maybe you get a bonus at the end of the year. Sales, maybe it's a lower base salary, or there are sales jobs where it's, zero base salary, which I think are very tough and, high stress even. But the potential, to exceed is just the work you put in, right? And that's where it kind of goes outside of the 9 to 5. If you want to make more money, you sometimes work in the evenings, or you work on the weekends, or it doesn't have to be sending emails. It can be reading a sales book or taking a sales course or things like that. So going back to your question of, advice I've received, it's having a growth mindset. There's a great book, I know you've heard of it, and you probably have it in the back of Carol Dweck, the mindset book of fixed mindset versus growth mindset, which is a big, theme. And just having that kind of approach to, I think, not just the sales career, but just life in general is, having that growth mindset and kind of trying to level up. And we're all not perfect, and we all don't know everything, but just having that approach will kind of lead to bigger and better things in life and in career as well.
That's good. And what I'm hearing from you is that probably the most important. A lot of people, here's the thing. I love that question because a lot of people, they worry too much about, sometimes the tools or these days it's AI, right? How to use this and that. But then when it comes to the core, it's like, it's just your values, your principles, what drives you, your why, right? Your mindset, your hunger to learn. So
when I think about advice, some of it has been books, and you mentioned Finding Your Why. Simon Sinek, one of my favorite authors, he wrote a book, I think it was called To Sell is Human. And it just talks about how even if you're not a sales rep or an account executive, we all sell, right? If you're a husband trying to convince his wife to go on a European vacation and to spend that money on the European vacation versus on updating something at the house, like you want to sell her on that, right? Or if you're convincing your kids to get ready for school, right? You're always selling something and kind of influencing and convincing folks, whether you're an official, salesperson or not. So I think some of the advice and things I've gotten is just picking up a book or, a few of them throughout my career and reading them that way and just always trying to grow.
Okay. No, I love that. And you have sold, let's continue on that. So you have sold millions, you have sold to big enterprises, you have, you're representing one of the biggest brands, in the technology world. Is there any difference between the regular sell or selling everything else and selling technology? Is there anything that you see that's different?
I've sold, ERP solutions. I've sold, the cloud, Azure cloud at Microsoft, and now selling more services at IBM. Selling a product versus selling a service are very different, because product, it can be a tangible widget, or cell phone. It's tangible. I can see it, feel it, touch it, everything else. And so a service is more, I'd say, intangible. You're selling kind of the value of maybe a cost savings, or maybe it's reducing risk, or maybe it's just simplifying kind of a process. Or maybe it's doing a total, implementation where, the company XYZ doesn't have the skills or staff to implement a new CRM. And so they hire, IBM or a partner or someone to do those types of things. So I think, it comes down to, of course, what you're selling, and you want to be selling a product that is, a high quality product or service. And so unfortunately, I've been, working at companies that I believe in the product, it works, it adds value to the customers. But of course, depending on who your customers are, if you're selling to a SMB versus a mid-market versus enterprise, as you kind of move along those different segments, it gets more complex selling to enterprise. There's more stakeholders, there's longer processes. They may have their budgeting cycle done in December for the fall, for the following year. So if I'm trying to sell something to one of my clients and they already have their budget allocated the way it is, where, and I'm trying to sell them something for $1 million, where is that money going to come from if they've already kind of allocated their resources for the next fiscal year? So that's where it's definitely different, selling to the enterprise versus mid-market versus SMB.
Gotcha. And you have sold for over a decade. What has changed these days with AI? Or is that the same, or is just people just, talking too
I
much
think
about AI? What has changed for you in your perspective?
um, I've used AI. I'm far from a professional, definitely in the space in terms of agentic AI and automating my sales processes and prospecting. With that, I think I have personally have a ton of opportunity for growth there. I have leveraged it in terms of doing some account research, taking a company, if it's a publicly traded company, taking their quarterly earnings or their annual 10K report, and instead of reading through 100 plus pages, having it synthesize that information or pull out the information that's relevant to my product or service that I'm selling. So that's some of the ways, kind of from a simple standpoint, that I've used it, where it saves me time, and it gives me some insight that I wouldn't have otherwise had without AI. But I mean, I think it's a little bit overhyped, where it's going to change the world and everyone's jobs. Maybe eventually. I could definitely be wrong about this, but in terms of me and just speaking from my kind of use, that's how I've done it. I think at the end of the day, a sales job 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I started, my first sales job 2011. It's now 2026, so 15 years. It's relationships, it's trust, right? Someone is not going to buy from someone that is shady, that they don't trust, right? And I would say that's something is one of my core pillars as a salesperson, that I've seen my dad, and I would hear him, his stories of, this person came in and they were so unethical in terms of the value or the price that they sold the car at. There's a reason he's been at one dealership for 26, 27 years, because he's consistent, he's honest, he's transparent. And that's something I've kind of carried, where I think it doesn't matter if it's 2011 or 2026. If you're a ethical, honest, transparent salesperson selling something of value, that's how you build a long, successful career in sales.
That's really, really good. And especially for everyone listening to this right now, we're coming to an end here, which time goes by really fast. But Mark, you're fairly young in your career, in your life. You're still there's a lot of the new generation out there thinking what they're gonna do next, right? Mm-hmm. And I personally feel like if you have a sales experience, you can get any job anywhere. Mm-hmm. We talked about everything sales. What piece of advice can you give to the new generation, the ones who are even in college, who are trying to figure out life these days? Should they do sales or not? Tech sales? Consider. What would you say?
I would say absolutely. If you could get an opportunity to get into tech sales, it's a great opportunity to stretch out of your comfort zone. Communicate, build your communication skills and learn your communication style. If you do hit, and exceed your sales targets, it can be a, extremely rewarding career as well, setting up for financial success. I would say that comes with a caveat of you have to be responsible. And my mindset, and this is, totally a different topic, is just kind of living below your means. If you make, let's just say, $50,000 and you spend $50,000, if you make $100,000 and you spend $100,000, you're not saving. So sales can be one of those careers, especially if you have a good year and you really exceed your quota and you get a bonus or a commission check. It's nice to reward yourself and treat yourself and enjoy the fruits of your labor, as they say. But it's also important, in my opinion, to plan for the future, and so just to kind of provide yourself with options down the road. So yeah, to answer your question, I think it is a great career. Even if you don't do it, for your entire career, it can be a great skill set, again, to sell as human, to use Daniel Pink's book, that you can build, whether you want to go into marketing or operations or, any other department. It's kind of a great pathway to start. I'm always jealous of the folks who started with Oracle or Microsoft or IBM at 22. I'm like, it took me, 5 or so years to get into the Fortune 100. And even then, I feel incredibly blessed and fortunate now to be in this, working at Fortune 100 companies for the last 10 plus years of my career. But yeah, absolutely try it. I'm happy to, anyone who kind of watches or hears this, I'm happy to lend an ear or a piece of advice if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Nice. I appreciate you offering here. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people will connect with you and reach out. And I was thinking, as you were talking to the younger generation, I actually now want to any final piece of advice for people who are actually like 5-10 years in tech sales and they're like, they might be feeling stuck, or maybe they might be feeling a little bit like burned out. Like, is there any piece of advice to them that that has helped you? Because to play in the big leagues, it takes effort.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy.
Keep going. This is my advice. When you're going through, through heck, right? To try and not swear on the podcast, they say, keep going. And so we've all, I have for sure had years where, I thought I wasn't going to hit quota. Thankfully, even in those high pressure moments, like I said, pressure can make diamonds sometimes. Like an NFL game, if for the folks who are listening, right, until the clock hits 0, you still have a chance, right? And so until the end of the quarter, or until the end of the fiscal year, keep pushing, keep going. But at the end of the day, if you really decide that you tried this and you want to try something else, that's okay too. Because I personally, when I was at Microsoft, I was there for just under 8 years. And I had 2 roles. I was about 5 years as a seller, 4.5, and 3 years in sales operations, because I had only done sales for most of my career outside of that first year in kind of production management. But I wanted to try something different, more marketing and operations. And I learned a new skill set. I worked on my MBA while I was doing that. I learned about, stakeholders and champions and everything else. And at the end of the day, I joined IBM and I came back to sales because I learned that sales is kind of where my heart is, and it's what I enjoy, and I like the challenge of it as well as the rewards. Every quarter, every year is not perfect. If it was easy, everyone would do it, as they say. But yeah, it's okay if you're at that point where you're 5 years in your career or 10 years in your career and you say, I want to, or I need to get a break from having this quota every quarter, really work to network and get into, another department within your company or maybe outside of the company that you're at. Yeah.
Amazing piece of advice. Keep moving, try new things, keep learning. You mentioned about MBA, like if it was just like an extra step, huge, right? Huge step that you took to learn something new and pivot and try a new skill. Amazing career, Mark. Thanks so much for your example. We're cooking and baking some ideas together.
Yeah.
On the back, but it was great to have you here on the podcast today, and I'm pretty sure it's going to inspire and help a lot of people. Thanks so much for joining.
No, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you, Dayvisson. So yeah, thanks so much for the great questions and for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the TechSales Funnels Podcast, where we crack the code and uncover the strategies to break into tech sales. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to hack their way into this exciting career. Remember, hacking into tech sales isn't just a goal, it's a mission. Let's keep hacking, learning, and winning together. Catch you next time.